I think every day I learn more from the children, the parents and the caregivers about sensory processing and about children on the spectrum. So sensory processing is a neurological process of how the brain or the senses perceive information, how it is integrated, and then how do you react onto that? Do you want to translate? So it's about detection, about interpretation, and about action. Assalamu alaikum. Let's quickly go over our senses. It's visual, the eyes, auditory, the ears, the nose, the taste, and then the tactile on our skin, which is our biggest organ, sensory organ, and then proprioception. It's the body space, the awareness of where your body is in space or the position of your body. And then vestibular has to do with balance, with movement. How do you react on movement? How do you perceive movement? And then the newest one that was described lately is interoception. So that is the information coming from our intestines, from our stomach, the diaphragm, the lungs and the heart. And I must say, since I learned about that, my therapy has become much more effective, because that is the basic sense that you can work with to integrate and to help the children. Now, why does it work? Because I always saw that if we give a child a big hug, it works, but I didn't know why. So until we go to the neurology and we see that we've got the 10th cranial nerve is the vagal nerve, and it goes down in all the internal organs, and it sends messages to the brain. And specifically that part of the brain where it ends is the insula, and that deals with anxiety, depression and focus. And I think all our kids are battling with that. And so this, even the lowest functioning child, if I leave him with a ball, they go on their stomachs on the ball. So I really realized that this is a very powerful tool and very easy, very, very easy to work. Okay. Is there anything that you want to ask? Yeah. So now once the senses receive the information, it goes to the brain or the brain stem. So this is the lower part here. Okay. So the brain stem, we are not conscious about what's happening there because it's like a gate. And I want to show you visually how it works. So it's mostly like a gate or a sieve. So imagine this is the information that's coming from the environment. Sometimes the gate or the sieve is closed. Very little is going through. Sometimes just put it here, just hold for me. Sometimes it's very big and everything goes through. Ideally, we want only the necessary information to go through. This is our well-functioning brain. Okay, so this is the information that is separated in the brain stem, so that you don't give too much attention to something, or that you don't block things out, because you must just need just the right amount of information going to the brain. Now, once it is through the brain stem and it's in the brain, then you must address it. You must give attention. So most of our kids, too many stimulation go through. They don't know how to react on that, and then we get the meltdowns, or the aggression, or the biting, or whatever you experience. And once again, it's not conscious. It happens on an unconscious level, and there's no control. Okay. So the video that we started with, I think that is how the children perceive each day. So it's just a lot of information coming. They don't know what it means because they can't make sense out of it. It's just too much. Sometimes I describe it as a tsunami. It's just ongoing information without any filtering. And I think if I must be exposed to that, I'll go mad. Yeah? So, yeah, so it can reach to that extent. So we get three different responses from children, either hypersensitive and then over-responsive. So that is typically the child, you must not touch them. My child is an ADHD child, so from month 3 I knew that he's tactily defensive. I couldn't hold him, he didn't like cuddling, he couldn't hold the bottle or the pacifier. So from babyhood you can see their signs. Then later on they do not want to play in sand, and playing in sand and outside develop fine motor skills. So you can see how sensory has an input on later development. Typically the sounds, the children are very, very sensitive to sound. Adult will tell me, if I drive, I cannot put my music on in the car, then I can't see, because it's just too overwhelming. How I see the hypersensitive child, it's mostly the child that's out of space. You see them and they are just drifting in space. And then you know that is the child that is hypersensitive, because they don't even perceive information from outside. And we have a little one here on a Thursday afternoon. So we call them the space cadets. So they are just, anyway. So if you're not even aware of your body, where your body is, then how can you do physical movement?
Spaceman.
Like spaceman, you just drifting. Yeah, so that is exactly. So any of you that you in your child can see hypersensitivity. I must tell you that sometimes there's a combination. A child is not only hyper or only hypo. Sometimes it's a combination. It's a combination. So from your house, you can give me some examples from. Yeah, so that brings us to a point of they become controllers, because they want to control the environment that they can. Any comments from your side? Your children, let's first look a little bit about the hypersensitive. So they do not want to touch things, or they get irritated very easily. So sometimes a child that is more seeking, is seeking. So there can be two reasons for seeking behavior. It's either they do not register, okay, so they're hypersensitive, or they use that as a modulator to modulate themselves. So the world is too chaotic, so we choose things like smell to calm them down. So then by doing our questionnaire, the sensory integration questionnaire, we can determine what are the triggers and what is the modulators that settle them down. And according to that, we work a plan or we give advice. So sometimes I use that, and then a parent, a therapist. Yeah, so let's go on to the next slide. So this little chap, he's having a sensory processing disorder. So I being groomed in the morning, brushing teeth, washing hair, everything is ever. You cannot tickle them, they get very irritated when hugged or whatever. Or picky eater, as you said. Or sometimes unaware of normal touch. So this is the child that will bump into a chair, into a table, into a corner, and not even be aware of that. So they're always blue and bruised, but they do not know where they got it. They chew on everything. I see that a lot. They chew on. My own child would chew on his school clothes the whole day. And anything, some of our children just grab anything. Yeah, always bite. So mostly the biting, they'll get to chewing and mouthing later, but that is mostly to soothe, mostly to calm down. And then, because some of the kids cannot feel their body because of the poor proprioception and the movement sense, they battle with gross motor things like jumping, hopping on one leg, running, climbing stairs, things like that. Fine motor is impaired because they cannot feel the pencil, they cannot feel the texture. Because if you cannot feel a pencil, how must you hold it if you cannot feel it properly? Then they also have difficulty to focus and to concentrate because of the gait. Everything is going through, so they cannot distinguish on what must I concentrate, on what must I focus. So in class, difficult, if something drops, they will rather look there instead of at the teacher. Or what we often see is while they're watching TV and you call them, they cannot shift the attention. Okay, so that's also difficult for them. And then most of the kids are only sensitive to sound and light. And yeah, we'll get to the oversensitivity now. I'm not going to go through all of this. I think you've got a very good idea from your own experience what is oversensitive. Also, what is, okay, then just quickly, the symptoms of overstimulation. So we've got the physical reaction, closing the eyes, closing the ears, dizziness, they start shaking. So then you can really see then that the child is anxious and is in a stress situation. Behavior changes, irritable, restless, and then we get the biting or the hitting or the screaming. Cognitive, very difficult to focus on a task. And avoidance, or they withdraw or just run away. Any of you have experienced it? Yeah, so why children love sometimes hugging, beating, hitting, banging their heads, because that gives the brain proprioception and deep pressure. So they use the proprioception to calm them down. So that is.
What about kissing?
Yeah, then it's more tactile. More tactile.
Or, like minutes, 15 minutes.
Kiss.
Just hugging, kissing.
Yeah, so it needs that. Yeah, so I think you already have a tool because he's showing you, and that is one of our points that we get to. We must look what our children want, and then we give it to them to regulate. So if you know that hugging does it, so if you see that there's chance that they get agitated or restless, you give him a hug, okay? And you hold him.
Before he does.
Yeah. It's fine, perfect. That is what he needs. We'll get to the interventions, but we must have like a repertoire, and I have a kit here, so you have a lot of things with you that you can, at the moment, in that moment you can give, but we'll get to that. Anti-can behavior, not. Because the seeking behavior, I think that has to do always clinging on a parent, always hanging on a parent. The seeking is also this daredevils that jump from things that doesn't know they're not scared of anything. The wild children, they will bash into everything. That's the seekers. Okay, and they talk very loudly. About the intervention, just a quick few points. Every child reacts differently to the stimulation. Therefore, we must also treat them differently. We cannot say, this is the protocol, do this, this, and this, and this, and you'll be fixed.
It's case-based.
It's case-based, because every child is so diverse. And I think you as parents know your children. It's only for me to guide you through it, and just to give a name or a tag to it, and then you will know what to do. If we just click again. So usually when you go to occupational therapist, we do the sensory questionnaire, and according to that we can see. And even on that, it's not always 100%. Then we try things out and say, oh no, this doesn't work, let's try this. So it's sometimes a trial and error. It's observation, a lot of observation, and how the child is doing at home. So sensory
sometimes maybe it would be, they will react
differently. That's right. Yeah. So we must have information: what's happening at school, what's happening at the house, what's happening in the center. So sensory processing is not a diagnosis in itself. You won't find it in a diagnostic manual, a medical diagnostic manual, but it's associated with children on the spectrum, or the ADD or ADHD children. Okay. And it cannot be cured, but we can give the child tools to cope a little bit better. Okay, like my child is 19 years old. Every morning he needs to take a bath and he needs to go to the gym. Otherwise, he cannot cope with the day. So later on, they have these strategies to cope. And I'm feel very strong about the team approach, where the child, the parent, the caregivers, the therapists, and especially a behavior therapist work together. Sometimes children are very difficult and they have built these behavior patterns up, and they must first go to a behavior therapist before I can intervene. Okay, so you must observe the whole time and decide what is the best at that stage. Okay, what do you do if your child has a meltdown in the mall? Now, I made a mistake in the beginning when a child has this meltdowns because we learned way back when I studied about restriction, and that was all that was in my head. So I restrict, and that does not help at all. You know, I was exhausted. The child is exhausted, and I realized just let them go. Just give them space, give them time, give them a safe place. So there's things that we can do, but I think at that critical moment, just leave them a little bit, just take them out of the situation if it's overwhelming. Or you know about the chewy chews, we will get to that now. And speak softly, and what you do, the soft movement, calms them down. Okay. And then I want to talk about the sensory diet. So sensory diet is like we eat our food daily, so that the children need that every day, because their brain does not take it in a spontaneous way, so we must give it to them. So we try, depending on what the regulators are, give a diet throughout the day. A little bit of movement, a little bit of tactile, a little bit of proprioception, a little bit of this interoception. So we work a program out throughout the day, even with breakfast. Instead of just eating yogurt, mix it with a little bit of milk and suck it through a straw. Okay, so we adapt throughout the day. Instead of, if you come back from the grocery store, let him carry the parcels because it's heavy. So you integrate that proprioception, the heaviness into it. And also about sensory diet, we eat every day, so our children need stimulation every day. Okay. I know it's sometimes hard, it is hard, but later on it becomes a habit. And the way of thinking, so it must be in your mind, so how can I, with this shopping bags, get my child involved? So he must carry it, or he must push. So during the day, okay, or instead of him walking to the bathroom, you do wheelbarrow walking or crawling, things like that. So just throughout the day, you give the info. Okay, now home strategies to deal with the children with sensory processing. The first one is routine, so that it can be predictable how the day will follow. Also to use the visual support charts to say we've done this and we cross it out, or we take the card off, now it's this one. So first this and then that, just the visual help. Try to control the environment. If you know that the child is sensitive to loud noises, don't put loud noise on in home, the TV, the radio, whatever. And very important, and I'm very, very convinced about it, no screens 1 hour before sleep.
Sometimes their screen is for message that they are happy.
The screens. Yes. I know they are, but you know what happens in the brain? That brain never shut down. Because the brain, of all this visual stimulation, all the light, the brain needs 2 to 3 hours to calm down before they go into a deep sleep. So if they watch TV, although they like it, the brain does not like it. They take 2 to 3 hours to calm down, then only they go into deep sleep. What happens the next morning? They are tired. Tiredness just aggravates the whole process. So if possible, and that is with a sensory child, it's with any child, with any person, especially social media, things that flashes, a lot of changing of the screen. It really has a negative. Fast videos is like fast. So if they rather listen to soft music, massage, things like that. Yeah. So the 1 hour before bedtime, no screens. No screens. Yeah. So it's like hideouts, like baths. We will get to the Okay, now let's go to the tactile system. So so whether your child is hypersensitive or hyposensitive, most of these activities help to regulate in between. So we have on this end and we have on this end. And most of the activities help the brain to get to the middle and just to regulate. So whether they are under-responsive, if you give massage, it brings them to the norm. If they are very hyperactive and you give deep massage, it brings them to the middle. Okay. So this is like a repertoire of activities or things that you can do at home. And also see, sometimes they react differently, then just leave it, you know. So the first one, what you mentioned, is massage. That firm, slow strokes on the back, on the arms, hands, legs, feet, fingers and toes. And if you are involved with an occupational therapist, they usually has the sensory protocol, the Prat-Roll Barger sensory protocol that we use the brush. But that's a specific technique that you must be taught, and it must be done in a certain way. But it's not difficult, but yeah. So brushing like this won't help, not help. So it's a deep, as you saw with Reem, it's a deep, deep pressure throughout the whole body, not the face, not the stomach, because that's sensitive areas. Okay. Then give her opportunities as much as possible for your child to explore. Weather permitted and everything, but to explore and to do some messy play in the mud and water. But I see, no, we can buy very expensive things from the shops, but they're not interested in that. They like water, they like mud, they like bubbles, rice in water. So very basic things. We do not need to buy a lot of things. Use the things that's in your house, but give them the opportunity. Our children are very picky with clothes. You know, sometimes only they want long sleeves, and the labels you must cut off. Sometimes they like tight clothes.
Sometimes they are explaining to you or giving you message that they are sick. They have toothache, stomachache, they have eczema. Sometimes they are physical.
That's right. That also
Yes.
prevents. Yeah. Once I put on this pressure bandage on a child in therapy, and he insisted on taking it home. He liked the deep pressure, where other children hate it. The child was thirsty, they all that. So, you know, but it's a tool that you have that you can use and see how they react. Then with bath time, so it's a lukewarm bath with Epsom salts with a little bit of scents like lavender or chamomile. It helps to calm the system down in the evenings. You know, the digestive system, let him carry heavy bags or a heavy backpack, pushing a laundry basket, filling bottles, Coke bottles with water, and they must carry it upstairs because it's heavy, or they can put 2 or 3 in a bag and they must carry it. So any heavy activity. Also deep pressure, the hugs, giving them hugs. This is a very nice cushion. It's a vibration cushion that they must hug, and then it vibrates. When we go up later, you can buy Lycra and you can sew it yourself. It's Lycra.
You did what?
I made a hammock of Lycra that folds, but you can just use the same fabric and you just seam it and you can tie it. Okay, to use the interoceptive system, abdominal massage, and there's a lot of videos, a lot of books that's very helpful. So I learned it through a book to do that. The other one is, if you have a ball, you can do massively much with your child. That little child hanging over the ball, we say he must melt like chocolate. So the child must really just flop over the ball. And I want you to try it because you want to stay in that position the whole day. So it's just literally lie over it and just move. Just
إذا حسيت حالك أشرب
Okay, I'm going to touch it. Okay, so just
مبين وجهك ولا لا؟
هي عادي بس انبولد يعني.
Okay, so just lying over the ball is one thing, just melting in, just melt. The other one is to put your hands on the floor, put straight on the floor, straight, and we give pressure through the shoulders. So it's that deep pressure. Ne? Yeah. So a few times. And then the other one is to move very slowly in all directions, very slowly. And you can sing with your child, you can sing a song, talk in a low voice, or just hum, because it takes them back to the womb. Okay. Are you asleep?
Not yet.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I find it's very difficult to teach them. But say for instance they jump on a trampoline and they are breathing like that. You teach them this is how it feels. So that they call it bottoms up or bottoms or whatever. So they must feel it. How does it feel? And then they will learn later on to, then mommy said, deep breathe in. And out. And so you teach them because that breathing is the diaphragm work. Also with children with constipation, breathing is extremely good because the diaphragm push down and it massage the intestines. Okay, anything on this? Then vestibular has to do with movement. So movement is the language of the brain. So whatever you do with movement, you speak directly to the brain. So we can have like hammocks. We have hammocks upstairs or swings, just an ordinary rocking chair, scooter board. But again with a ball.
Because he is strong, he doesn't. Yeah, he broke 3 rocking chairs.
Really? Because he goes like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So a ball is also very comforting if you just sit and hop, bounce, or you can put your hands on the shoulders and or through the head. Okay, so that's very, very common. Usually in schools they do it. Each child has a ball and they do that. So that's all. A lot of our children needs to chew to calm themselves down. So we have the chewy chews. I'm sure you know how it looks like. You can just send it around. Some of the children that break chewy chew, they will chew it for 1 or 2 days, then it's broken. So with that force. Then other things is blowing. If your child can blow, this I think is the favorite activity in my room is the blow. But because blowing is so integrated, because what happened to the eyes, if you blow and you look here, the eyes go together. And that is the start of eye control and eye coordination. And we blow and all the bubbles walk over. So it's a very sensory activity. Even in the bath in the evening, give them, I put 2 or 3 straws, I connect them, then it's long and they can sit and they just blow in the bath. Okay, so blowing is a very nice activity. So sometimes you advise the parents to have a survival kit in the car, especially when you pick up the child from school. They are very agitated, they are tired. So I'm just going to show you things that you can put in there. So noise cancelling headphones, or we have a therapeutic listening protocol that is listen to specific music on the headphone. You can make your own fidget toys, not necessary to buy. Not necessary to buy fidget toys. You can take a balloon, put in some flour or rice or sugar. Yeah. Also with the sock, we call it a cha-cha-cha. So we go on the child's arm, we say cha 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 cha. So that's to calm down. Yeah. Also, if you need some weight, you can just put it on the child's shoulders. Okay. So this is also in the. Then a bit of vibration. These I get from Minnie Sue. Sometimes I like to put it on. Sometimes I put it in the mouth. But that's very soothing. Vibration is extremely soothing. Also for proprioception. So it's something that you can press. It's a deep pressure. That give it in the car and I can just push. Oh, blowing. Again, blowing. Things. This I got from Home Center. At the city center. I think this is also, Maurice loves it, and some of it, and like this. And they do it themselves because it's so relaxing. You can send it around. So whenever you go now to the shop, you have this in mind. I need deep pressure, and anything you can get. And this is a decathlon vibration. It's nice. And that one also on the legs. The children, if I put it on their legs, I pull it up themselves and push down. Center, city center, yeah. Then weights, ankle weights, wrist weights, very effective. And any of the squeeze balls. I think this is the favorite ball in my room because I pull it and just a ketchup bottle with water, deep pressure. Okay, so it's that anything. So anything that can squeeze that you have in your house. The Play-Doh that I made for you, it's salt and flour and water, a bit of colouring. So that also to squeeze. It's a deep pressure that squeeze. It calms down. So that it's like a fidget toy, and if they eat it, it's fine. It's nothing harmful. A technique that also worked very well in my last course that I did, she emphasized that a lot. Especially if the child is a little bit smaller, you massage the toes, each toe. Say, let me count your toes. And while you are counting, you're massaging. And the toes, there's so many pressure points, so many nerves in the feet that they calm down.
It's called peripheral pain. It looks like peripheral. You always hear it's
it's the based on the reflexology, so the pressure points on the feet. But if you just massage the toes, it's like when they were a baby, you were doing it in a loving way. A lot of these things take them back to the womb space, take them back to when they were a baby, when they were calm, relaxed, and then they feel better. Okay. Do any of your children have toe walking? Yeah, and they do not like the tightness, so they're sensitive to that most of the time. Yeah. And when you go, so I think to use things like slippers and shoes, and it's good, but I think we must go back to the basic, and that is the brushing. So it's to intervene in the nervous system, to go into there. Yeah. If I do this, I fixate my body, so then I'm more in control of my body. So that's one reason, because they vestibular insecure, and then we must do graded movement program. If they are tactily sensitive, they don't want to put their whole foot on the floor, then it's sensitive. Or what I usually see is they will come into the room like this. As little as possible contact with the floor, with anything. Then it's sensitive, and then we do brushing, massaging, and we go on the sensory. Or it can be poor proprioception. So it can be they do not feel their feet. I have one little boy, Jamie.
Yes.
Yeah, so we work a lot on moving surfaces, a lot of deep pressure, moving up surfaces like that. Let him stand literally on his heels while we are working. So we put the support underneath so to stand like that, just for that proprioception.
Are going on the slide opposite way.
Yeah, on the slide you must walk up like that. So it depends on what the cause is of mouthing. Do your children mouth? Put everything in the mouth? So it can be because some of the children, their behavior is still like 2-year-olds or under 2-year-olds, and that is how a 2-year-old explore, is through the mouth. So we must give them chance to do that. But then there comes a time that we must modulate on that. And rather use a whole body approach. So a lot of hands, so a lot of exploring with the hands, a lot of exploring with the body, so that they don't need to go to the mouth to explore, so that they can use their hands. And mostly those children are sensitive in the hands. They do not want to touch Play-Doh. Maurice, I worked with her with Play-Doh, and she was rolling the dough with her forearms, and she's mouthing extremely, everything she sees. She even licks the floor. And then I realized, but that hands are so sensitive, so she uses her tongue to explore. And once we started massaging and work a lot on the hands, the mouthing is better. So it depends on what the cause is. And then the last one is soothing. The next one is soothing because biting. You know, if you chew chewing gum, if you eat carrots, you feel better because there's joints in your mouth, and when you chew, serotonin is set free and you calm down. Okay, so it's the body's own tranquilizer, and then it's also for seeking and to and usually by that they calm down because also of the neurological connection to the brain. And also to give, instead of another toy, give something that's really edible that he made you, like anything else. Like, I think this was nice interactive session. I'm finished. Anything you want to ask, you want to comment on?